almost like renting a house. Like when you have a job, you are renting your career, right? Like
Yep.
you might love the place, but it's still not yours.
Are you one of the 91,000 people who have watched John Kuiphoff's video on lasering all the things? If so, you might be curious about what he does with his laser. John is a really interesting guy who I've had the opportunity to get to know over the last few months. And we recently sat down to talk about just that. Overall, John is an incredibly curious guy who is totally willing to try things and fail. And he has so much great advice for beginners in how to get started, how to get over those fears, and how to really test things and make them your own. You can also learn in this conversation about John's course, Glowforge for Beginners, and I'll leave links to his best videos, which he may not agree with, down below. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we enjoyed having it. So excited to talk to you today, John. Tell us what you do, because we know lasers are not your full-time job, but probably everybody doesn't know that who knows you from YouTube.
Yeah, doing a lot of things. But by the way, thanks for having me on. It's not my full-time job yet. So right now I am a professor at the College of New Jersey in the design and creative technology department. And I teach everything from creative coding to data visualization to film to electronics to digital fabrication. I built a huge makerspace in there, but I started as a web developer, essentially as a graphic designer and web developer. And I made apps for about 12 years. I made so many apps and did so much freelance work and full-time work that I got really burnt out. And then one day I decided I need to get as far away from the computer as possible. This was after a huge freelance gig for Best Buy, actually. And my friend and I were so burnt out. He bought a Jeep and I took all the money and I bought woodworking equipment to get as far away from the computer as possible. And it all came in. I didn't know how to use any of it. So I went on YouTube and I fell in love and I never looked back. At that same time, Glowforge came out with their campaign for a laser cutter. And I had seen a laser cutter once before. It was an Epilogue laser cutter at NYU. I was doing like a summer camp tech thing over there. And I was fascinated by it. And it was the first time you could get a laser, like for my own house, that was at that time $2,000. That was what the pre-sale was. So I signed up immediately, $2,000. And 2.5 years later, it finally showed up at my doorstep.
Oh,
And
wow.
during those 2.5 years, I just kept on woodworking and 3D printing and things like that and starting to get into CNC machines. So the laser found itself like, it was like family as soon as it arrived. Yeah.
What was your first woodworking tool you bought? Like, what did
It
you
was
decide? What did you know you had to go for?
I didn't know what I was doing. I just like random stuff. Most of it, like I had to like just like never use. I bought like a router table that like was terrible. I went to like a lot of. I just bought like jigsaws and really cheap tools, like band saws and small table saws, and then finally started going to garage sales. So almost all the tools in my shop have been through 3 iterations so far. So I
Okay.
had like the really cheap like Ryobi bandsaw from like Home Depot or Amazon. And then, I bought a better one and then a better one. Now I have 2 really nice bandsaws. In fact, I'm selling my jointer and planer today. I took pictures minutes before we hit record because I finally got like a hammer A31 helical head 12, like it's amazing. It's made in Austria. This thing's like, weighs 1,000 pounds almost. So I'm gonna go pick it up in Delaware. I have to go pick it up in my van. So I had to buy like a special ramp because it's so heavy. So like that's the 3rd iteration. So the shop, it evolves constantly. I also have 3 lasers. I bought 3 lasers. I have 2 left. I gave one away. And right now they're both just Glowforges because in a smaller shop, right now the Glowforge is what makes sense for the kind of work that I do.
What did you think you wanted to make when you started woodworking?
Kitchen cabinets for my kitchen. So I
Okay.
bought some books and I never made those kitchen cabinets. In fact, I made the cabinets for my shop and I hated making them so much. Like, because they're not creative. Like, I was just frustrated the whole time. So we're going to go to Ikea to pick up my kitchen cabinets when I finally get around to it. I didn't like making cabinets. I like creative work. I like experimenting and probably talk a little bit about that today. I like seeing what the tools can do. So everything that I do, I just like experimenting and creativity and problem solving. When you're building kitchen cabinets, all the problems have basically been solved. There's like a way to do it and a way not to do it. And that's why I escaped programming. When I first started programming, I was creating all kinds of creative apps and things. And the web at that time was like the Wild West. Like you could do all kinds of crazy stuff. Websites didn't look the same. It was fun. It was creative. It was full of problem solving because the frameworks weren't made. And then after, like I said, 12 years, there was a right way to do it. And once there was a right way to do it, it lost a lot of the fun. Like all the parts of it that I loved were now like in a document that tells you exactly how you're supposed to do it. And so I grew up on like punk rock music, Nirvana. So like there's a part of me that just like rebels against that. So like forget about it. And then what happened was, here's the thing. I was doing web development, like it's really in demand. And I was charging, as a funny story, I was charging like $1,000 a day when I was doing web development for freelance, but I was really good. And so, and nobody ever said no. And so I kept getting the bigger clients and I was doing all this crazy stuff. So when I quit, I was a beginner again. And so I felt like I was like 12 years old. And so I finally started working at a sign shop. And I still work for the sign shop. I love working for the sign shop because there's all these weird creative projects and crazy people. And the first project I did, I don't even remember what it was. I was supposed to invoice them and I didn't know what to charge. So I just figured, let's charge them like, $125 an hour, like what I normally charge. And I get this text back, and I can imagine the guy on the other end, like with his iPhone, like cracking the screen. He's so angry with me that I was ripping him off. And I had no idea, like you couldn't charge that kind of money for the kind of work that I was doing in woodworking and that kind of stuff. So I learned very quickly that initially the standard woodworking, like gluing up panels, you don't make $1,000 a day, at least at not my level. But with the fabrication and a couple other things, you can start to sort of kind of do that. But it doesn't matter. I'm so much happier, even though this makes a lot less than web development. It's just like I wake up in a good mood every day doing this.
What was, when you saw I'm assuming it was the Kickstarter for Glowforge. Yeah. What did you think that you wanted to start making with that? Did you think because of knowing you could use design software with that, and that was something that you had skill in? I'm assuming Adobe Suite is your go-to.
It is. I do a lot more Fusion 360 as well now.
Okay.
But like in my class, we just covered we'll talk about that at some point, but the Adobe stuff. So I was a graphic designer for 20 years. So like I know Illustrator like the back of my hand, or at least old school Illustrator. Now it does all kinds of fun things. But what I actually thought I was going to do with the laser, at the time I was doing a lot of physical computing and working for museums, and I was making like exhibits. So I was like building the cases. I was doing all the electronics, like actually building the circuits from scratch, doing the animations, the voiceovers, the interactive like coding, like everything. And I love doing that. And so I thought the laser was going to help me make like project panels and things, the whole circuit boards into place, and more like utility stuff. I wasn't thinking crafts or anything like that at all. At that time, it was just like, oh, I can use this to make shapes, and that I can hold electronics, and I can make like things like joysticks and buttons and like labeling things. So that was the idea.
How in the world did you get into making museum displays?
I don't know. It's like there was a children's museum near me, and I was in grad school, and like I met somebody that was like worked at the Museum of Natural History, and so one night they let us go in there when the museum was closed and everything was dark and the dinosaurs were like in the shadows, and we would see this planetarium. But walking through the museum like at night, and you're like seeing all like the displays and everything was like out in the open, and I was like fascinated by that. And I was like, man, I would love to work for like a museum. And when I moved back to New Jersey, there was a children's museum. They were always looking for people to do things on the cheap because like they're mostly grant funded. So getting into woodworking, like I wasn't very good at it, but I was like starting to they're like, oh, can you make a cabinet that does this and that? And that was the justification for buying the tools. Like, even though I didn't make very much, I made like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 per project. And I spent like 2 months on the thing, but I would start getting all my tools in order. And then I just loved all the different pieces that had to work together. It's the same thing with coding. Like when you're coding, you're taking these small ingredients, you're putting them all together to make something really big. It's the same reason I like cooking. It's like the same thing. So when you're making something like with the lasers and the electronics and the animations and the coding, like you're putting all these things together to have something that you could like breathe life into. And for me, that's like the most fascinating thing. And the lasers just made that part easier.
Yeah. It sounds like you are a super curious person, which is one of the things I think I found out about you right away. Like you like to figure out how things work. And and you need to learn and you need to continuously learn. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite things, one of the ways I found you was your video about like lasering everything. What made you want to do that, and why did you put it on YouTube?
Yeah. Okay. So that video, so I mentioned I started. So okay, I'm gonna sort of answer that. So I was a coder and I was still a college professor, and I was like, I don't want to teach coding anymore. So I asked the school. I said, can I teach digital fabrication? But there was no makerspace, and so I'm like, can I? And they're like, well, I guess I have to build a makerspace. I want to teach those classes. So we raised like $200,000 through grants or donations to build this space.
What
And so you
falls
have a
in?
bunch.
Can you define digital fabrication? I don't know that everybody knows what that is.
Sure. So digital fabrication is making things with computers and glue, essentially. So you're using laser cutters, like Cricut machines, CNC machines, 3D printers to make stuff. And this program is primarily like a game design, animation, coding, like stuff like that. So like this was definitely in left field. Um, but they allowed me to start teaching classes in it. But what I found was the students, I'm going to answer your question in a second. The students were only using wood and acrylic and laser. But I was like, but you can use anything. But I think sometimes people need to be shown that they can do it before they actually do it. So COVID hit, boom, and so like I was home and I had this camera and I had the Glowforge. So I started like experimenting because I was home more. I was just printing every material. I was going on Amazon and hardware stores and just like compiling as many materials as I could. And I wanted to make like a huge library that we're going to put on the makerspace wall. So every material, and I still never made the wall. But so I started making the thing. I'm like, I should put this into video since like we're all home. They can't even watch this. So like I can send my students this video. So it wasn't meant to be a real video. So if you look at the video, like I just record it like haphazardly when I could. So like I'll be walking the dog and my hair was all wet. And the next scene it was dry again because like it wasn't a real video. And I was like, well, I should put it on YouTube. And I was like, it's pretty good. Maybe I should like put some B-roll in there. And then like I think it's got like over 90,000 views now. And that's why I do so much laser stuff, because that video all of a sudden, like just the inbox still every single day, questions about what are the settings for this? What are the settings for that? And that was just a happy accident that led me down a very strange road.
That's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
it seemed completely intentional because it's so thoughtful and you went through everything.
Yeah, yeah. That's what yeah. Here's the deal. So I just got a ton of stuff. It's a small shop, so my table saw is my desk. But I'm experimenting with everything like this, like I'm trying to figure out like how to curve acrylic properly, and I'm like spray painting like the best possible spray paint. I've experimented. I guess there's the one yesterday that failed. This one was a successful one where you spray paint the back of something and you laser engrave it.
Move
I'm like,
over.
well, that's cool. But then I got a sublimation printer, right? Like, because
Yep.
that was somebody in the class. And I'm like, what if I can sublimate this and then laser it? So I tried doing it. And it's like horribly not working yet. But I'll get there. And then I can post about it. But working with like, with a project I'm working with too right now, like this like textured plywood. So like how can you take MDF and like spray paint it, and then making like your own like plywood from like veneers and MDF. Like, do you use a vacuum bag? Do you use clamps? Can you iron it on? So I love like working through those types of problems. And I'm also working on like some 3D stuff, like to make like edge molding. Like I always have like 100 different experiments going, but I almost don't care like what it produces. I like the process. I want to
Yeah.
document it. And then like other people who are, and sometimes I make stuff like, yeah. Oh, and that one video, now I'm rambling on about a bunch of stuff. The coolest project came out of that. I don't know if I have it on my desk. Hold on. Oh, I don't. Oh, I thought I had one around here. So one of the first emails I got after that video was from SJC Custom Drums. And they're like the Rolls Royce of like drum making. Like everything's custom. And they work with a lot of really influential drummers. So this guy, Mike, he emails me. He's like, do you want to help me make some drum badges, some custom drum badges out of all your crazy materials? I was like, yes, absolutely. That's my jam. So one of the first clients we did was Slipknot. And so we did all Slipknot's drum badges like on the Glowforge, and I messed up the first batch. Like I didn't realize them. So but then we did a bunch of others, like for 100 different bands, not 100, maybe a few dozen. But like that's an awesome gig because everything was an experiment. Everything was hard.
Yeah. How
So
would you say, so we'll go into a couple things here with one of the things that you have in your space now is Glowforge for beginners.
mhm.
And how do you think about getting people over that hump of like being afraid to fail?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll talk about the course, why the course exists. So the YouTube video that has 90,000 views, it's a terrible video. Like you have to watch it. It's like I didn't know how to talk in front of a camera, at all. Like it's like I can't watch any of the stuff on YouTube. But there was some valuable information there. But there's all these things that I wanted to change about that video, but you can't because it's YouTube. It's like slipping an envelope underneath the door, and it's like that forever. So I was like, I'm gonna build a course that's, first of all, it's not like, it's, I can order it in the order I want it to be in an order that makes sense, and I can edit the videos, I can delete the videos, I can update the videos. And I started to realize like I'll get fewer comments, which means I can actually get to everybody. And so the course right now has like 100 people in it, and we have, I think there's going to be like 40 pre-recorded videos on like pretty much anything I can possibly think of. And they're much better quality, thankfully. They're getting better and better every week. We have Saturday lives, and we have a lot of one-on-one tutoring. And what I like about the online course is that you have a smaller cohort, so you really like, you have a shared mission, and so you don't have to worry about trolls. You don't have to worry about like impressing anyone with like a super fancy video. Like it just has to be valuable for somebody. And so like it's very rewarding to have somebody who buys the Glowforge and they have a goal and they want to make an Etsy shop or they want to do this or that, and you help them through that process, like, and then they're good. And like, and so we have a much smaller group of people that keep coming in and out, and it's like it's one of the most rewarding things I've done in like probably the last 10 years is that course, even though it's like it's like it's only like 100 people in there right now, but I get so much satisfaction out of that. You asked a question, I forgot what question it was. It was supposed, that was going to lead up to that. What was
That's
your question?
my question is, what would you say for people who are starting out? How
Yeah.
do they get past that fear of making mistakes and failing? Because I think
Yeah.
one thing I talked about with Jacqueline from the Fable Tree was people get worried. You know, they make this big investment in this laser, and they're like, "Ooh, I just spent $6,000," and so then they're starting to not make those same investments in like you said, like make the experiment and try all the things and fail so that you get good at the thing. Do you focus on one thing and fail at it a lot and then move on to something new? What's your suggestion?
Okay, so I went to school, and I undergrad and graduate, and I paid a lot of money to go, and I've been paying student loans for a very long time, and I still owe $87,000. It was much higher. And when you buy a $6,000 laser, to not invest the extra money into the materials, I think Jacqueline also mentioned this on your one of your episodes, is silly. Like you've already put that much in. Like to me, it's like you're paying for an education. So if I spend $400 on materials, and I destroy them all, like this, like that's a fair amount of acrylic I just really messed up, and I'm probably going to mess it up 100 times. Eventually, I'll get that process down, and that's just part of the education. Like that's just built in, and then eventually once I have that skill, I'll be able to charge for it later. Like everything's an investment. Like even I think I spent like probably close to $1,000 on materials for that one video you mentioned. Because of that video, I probably made at least $50,000 to $60,000 based on that video. Another good example, and I don't post on YouTube a whole lot. I will start doing that more midsummer, and it'll be more of a frequent thing. I did an episode about tape, 3M tape.
I was going to
I
ask
feel like,
about that
yeah,
one.
it's probably $300 or $400 on every kind of tape on in the whole world, like
Yeah.
3M tape, this tape, and it's like the amount of tape I own is like it's stupid. But I put that video online, and just from like the Amazon affiliate links that I have on that tape, Amazon sends me a check for like $70 just on like tape sales. So like it paid for my tape. So like if you publish your work and you give that value to somebody else, you're eventually just going to get paid for it. Like it's just, and why would you keep it to yourself? Like it's helpful to other people. It's not costing me anything to not share it. So you might as well just share it.
Right.
And then there's just opportunities, like whether it's like freelance gigs or just like affiliates through like the Amazon thing or whatever. there's just opportunity that comes your way when you share things. So that'll pay for your education, I promise. I
Yeah.
have a lot of faith in that. I don't know why, because it's never failed me yet. Yeah. And I don't have an $87,000 balance from buying materials like I do at grad school. Like grad school's taking decades to pay itself off.
Yeah.
Anything you do in here is pay itself off in a few months. I don't try to make a ton of money in here though. Like for the longest time, anything that I made with these machines, I just put back into this space to buy more machines and more materials. And my 9 to 5 income was like, that's house stuff. Stuff in here is like this stuff. Until now, it's also now becoming house stuff. But for the longest time, because I have everything I ever needed and wanted. Like I paid, like I'm good. Like I have everything I want now, and the Glowforge paid for, and most of this is, and the CNC. Like every job, you learn a little something new. So I take on a ton of freelance, and that's like an opportunity where you can't really fail, but you can sort of fail. Like it'll push, freelance will push you in a way. I always tell the students it's like speed dating for industries, because like we just try out all these different industries, and I've never speed dated. I'm married to the person I met in high school. Like, so I don't even know what that feels like, but I can imagine what that feels like. But like when you just do a ton of freelance, like build in a lit, sometimes you're going to lose money because you're going to mess it up and have to redo it. But like what you learn from that, eventually it pays off, and it pays off while you're doing it, because it's fun and it's exciting. But eventually, monetarily, it'll pay off. So I mentioned earlier, right after this, I might move out of this. I'm thinking about moving out of the space into a new space, and I think I might have enough. No, I don't know. Everything's a gamble. If it wasn't a gamble, it wouldn't be fun. I think I'm going to see if I can move into a new space, like, and actually rent a big space and have maybe like hire a few people to help me with things, and actually have a real film studio and a workshop. And let's see where that takes you. And maybe that'll eventually move on to something else. Maybe then I'll be having a Netflix show or something at some point. You just don't know where it's going to take you. But unless you don't try and at least attempt to fail, know you're a fail a little bit. I've had some doozies though. I don't want to talk. Maybe we could talk about them. But like through 2 or 3 projects where I failed so bad, I was like, why am I even doing this? I should just go back to programming, like where it was really, really bad. So like you learn what your limits are, and you learn like when to say no.
How do you find freelance? How did you find freelance? Do you put yourself out there? Do people find you? How, like, and how do you recommend for other people to do that are getting started? Just go talk to people and.
Yeah, like I started doing projects for free. Like even as a web developer, it's like the same thing. Like, oh, just trying to learn. So like, hey, I'll do like your website, or I'll do your comic book thing, or I'll do your whatever. With woodworking, I just started making stuff for people, and like I would go down into town and be like, "Oh yeah, I could make you one of those," and then they would recommend you, and eventually you start charging like cautiously, and at some point, like when you start to get resentful, then it's like time to raise your prices, and you have a business.
Yeah.
And so like that, and then all of a sudden, like, and then also just posting stuff online, like sometimes you post something on Instagram, and you'll get like 4 or 5 posts from strange companies or people, and then you finally start deciding which one do you want to say yes and no to. Like I won't do any more wedding stuff, like no way. Like I've learned that lesson so many times. Like there's so much work, you make any money, like you pour your heart and soul into it, and everyone's stressed, and then you make like $20 because like on Etsy can make it for 15, because they batch them out. So like I've learned like which industries I want to stay away from. That's why I love the drum company. Like the thing's creative, you're working with creative people. Yeah, I just want to make useful stuff. I'm not interested in selling things necessarily, but I like making things that inspire people or empower people to to pursue their own goals.
I like that. Yeah. What would you say has been the most challenging thing as you were getting started? Was there anything that you were like, oh, I didn't expect this?
Yeah, a couple things. The first thing I didn't expect going into this. So when you're a computer programmer, you buy a computer, you buy your software, and you're good. When you buy a Glowforge, that's when the sickness just begins. And then before you know it, then you're going to buy the Cricut and its illumination printer and a table saw and 2 band saws and another Glowforge, maybe another laser and a 3D printer. Oh, and then I got to film it. So the camera stuff, like now you have like a whole cage. Now like I need a whole new building. My lawnmower is in the front yard because there's no more garage in my house. Like I took over the whole garage. So we have a storage unit. So actually if I do it right, I got to drive 40 minutes to the storage unit to get the lawnmower out. Like there's no room. Like I've taken over this entire compound because I bought like a laser and a few woodworking equipment, and it just builds on itself. And it's just stuff. It's just like a lot of stuff that you have to sort of manage. That I didn't expect.
Okay.
And you spend a lot of money, and which means you have to work a lot. Like this week I made 30 whiskey flights and I made $675 on those. That's nice. And I worked on this IKEA hacks thing, which I talked about earlier. I don't know what I'm gonna make on that. So it's like maybe that's $1,000. So it's like $1,500 for the week, which is not horrible. But like I just spent like $6,000 on a new tool. Like that's just like for just a replacement for something I already have. And so it just kind of consumes itself, and then but you just slowly grow. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always like for me, it's always like I'm not making a profit because I keep investing it back in. So
What would your ideal day look if you think about this in a year, 2 years, like
yeah,
what does your day look like?
I think about this all the time. So my ideal day is I wake up, usually go for a walk, and I come in, and the workshop's clean. That's it's never clean in the morning, but it's clean in the morning, and I have a really fun, creative, small freelance project. I get to like wrap my head around for 2 hours and experiment, get that out the door. But then everyone else shows up. I don't know who else this is, but other people show up, and we film an episode and we make something really fun. And so we have like a film person. I had a film person come by for one of my last videos in the course. Like, this is so much easier if someone else just films this, and I just like in front of the camera doing my thing. So like, yeah, having like a small creative team that's like maybe a film person, like a motion graphics, and like another maker, and we just make something crazy, and we just like film it, and then we put it out there, and hopefully it inspires someone to do what they want to do and not do what like maybe their parents told them to do. Like I always want to inspire people to do the things they actually wanted to do when they were 12 years old, and not the stuff like their high school guidance counselor or their parents told them they should do, because it's like, oh, there's good money in that, there's job security. Like I want to break all that. And that's part of as a college professor, like they all come in, they're all looking for a job. I said, you really want a job? I've had jobs. Jobs are not fun. Like you want to start your own thing. Like, do you want to like what? It's almost like renting a house. Like when you have a job, you are renting your career, right? Like
Yep.
you might love the place, but it's still not yours. You can do some things, but not everything. And you need permission to do anything. But if you own the place, you could do whatever you want to it. And so like that's the same thing with like careers and businesses. Like, yeah, it's scary because if the pipes break, boom, you have to fix it. But like starting your own business, when you wake up, like the sense of responsibility and like the thrill of it, and there's like a lot of highs and lows. Like if you have a job, it's like your day is like it's almost flat. It's like, or your career even. It's like there's like little highs. Like, oh, I got a little bonus. Oh no, like they took my red stapler away. Like there's, but when you have a business, it's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die, or like, we're at the top of the world, and it's like eventually you want to like control that a little bit, but at least it gives you something to look forward to. It's like if you have a job at 9 to 5, I always thought it was like watching the end of a movie. Like how this ends. Like Friday at 5, like you're still sitting at the desk that you don't own, doing the thing that you don't want to do. Like you already know how it ends. Like that's not fun. So my perfect day is I almost don't want to know how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Like I want to just let the interesting opportunities come my way, and then pick the ones that I think can give people the most value, which are not always the most fun, but the most fulfilling. Like there's a difference between fun and fulfilling too. The most fun projects are generally not the most fulfilling projects. The most fulfilling projects are generally not the most fun projects. So you need some kind of balance.
What has been your most fun project so far then?
Like recently, or of all time?
Of all time.
Of all time, honestly. So that's an interesting question too, because the most fun projects, sometimes they're fun because they're so frustrating to get through.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to build an entire bar that was as big as my one car garage for a friend of mine. And here's a story with that. This is why it was the most fun. So when I was in college, I was a student worker under him. and he was a huge mentor of mine, and he's the reason I got into computer programming, because I was doing this graphic design stuff and he was doing this coding stuff, which I didn't know nothing about. And I'm like, that looks awesome, because he doesn't know it, but he could breathe life into art with that code. So I was like, I want to learn coding. So I self-taught my coding, and then after college, it's like, hey man, can you just stick around for a little while and like finish what you were working on? And I'm like, sure. And he became like my full-time boss, and we became best friends, and blah blah blah. And at some point I'm like, I'm going to grad school, I'm quitting, I'm giving you a year's notice. And he goes, oh, you can't quit? Like, this was so much fun. And like, that's not fun anymore, but like, you can't quit. So I'm like, you should come with me. So he says, okay. So we both quit our job and go to grad school together. And he's still coding and coding. And so anyway, he does his thing, I'm doing my thing. And I quit coding, and I didn't know how to tell him. I was so upset. I was like, is he gonna be mad at me? Like, we invested years into coding it. Like, my mentor, like, no, I don't really code very much anymore, only for fun once in a while. Like, I make stuff now made out of wood, and I didn't know how he was going to take it. And I was so relieved when he wasn't upset. I know that sounds so silly, but he's like, oh, that's awesome, can you build me a bar for my basement? And I was like, sure. So I think we spent like $4,000 on materials alone. Like, it was a really nice bar. Like, it was like, I put everything I had into this project, and there was no room to build it in here. And I'd never built a piece of furniture that big before, and which I mentioned earlier, I don't really like building stuff like that. But this was like, I wanted to build the best bar. I took a welding class, so I knew how to weld the shelves, but like, and it came out awesome. And then he had a Christmas party. This is right before, I think, I don't know. Oh, when was this? I'm trying to see the timeline. That was my favorite build on like anything I've ever done, because he loved it so much, and I was just like, oh good, he's not upset with me that I'm not programming anymore. And so like, since then, like, oh, can you make a this, can you make a that? And I mean, that's so silly to think that, like, you should be able, people change. And I guess that's important. Like, I don't know why that was so silly that I would think that. I see a lot of students in college too, like, they're so afraid if they want to change their major, their parents are going to get upset with them. And I always think about that story. They're not going to be upset with you. I just want you to do what you want to do.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
what has been your most frustrating build?
Oh, I don't know. Should we get into the story? All right, I'll get into the story. So there were these clouds. There were these clouds for a company that I think does amazing things. They basically crush diamonds into like little minuscule things and spread them in a way that they can do identification with a special camera, but it's invisible. Anyways, it's really crazy technology. And I was doing some product stuff for them, and they're really great people. And they had their like first trade show. And so I was going to make like the centerpiece, these big clouds that had the smart film that would go from opaque to clear, so you could see inside the cloud. And so I'd have to make these big fluffy clouds out of foam. There was all these electronics that would have to go in. There was like just all these moving parts, and it was only supposed to be one cloud. And we only had like 2 weeks to do it. So I said yes when I should have said no, because it was an almost impossible project and I couldn't source the materials. So I was like, what am I going to do? I can't get the materials. Like, they just don't ship in time. So I'm like, I have to go to Home Depot, and like 11 coats of paint on the foam, and they still look green. They don't look white. The smart film, like, they were having problems with those. And what happened was, and all this stuff, everything was a problem. And I got them done like hours before like the mail person could take them to Los Angeles for this trade show. And I was so stressed out about these things. And they got there, and I got a call like right before the trade show opens. And they said, John, one of the clouds stopped working. And I was like panicked. I was walking my dog at the time, like in the woods. And I was like, what do you mean they're not working? Like, it stopped working. And then one of them blew up, like the power supply blew. And I was like, and then the other two ones, and this is like the centerpiece of their thing. They probably spent $100,000 on this trade show. But like, I was just one small part of it, but I was like the centerpiece. They all stopped working, and they were freaking out, and they're very upset. So, and you couldn't get the power supplies because they were 22 volts AC. And I figured that out. Like, so you can't just buy new power supplies. So they drove like 4 hours to go get new power supplies for like $1,500, some like ridiculous price. And like, this will fix it. And it's like right before the trade show opened, they plugged them in, boom, 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 they all exploded. And I don't know what I did wrong, but it was my fault because I was just going too fast. Like, I took on too much. And I knew it was too much, but I was like, I can do it. I think I can do it, even though I sort of knew I couldn't do it. So that was a good lesson. Like, sometimes you have to like just trust your instinct. Like, I knew what was too much, and I should have said no, and I would have saved everybody a lot of heartache. Had I just set my boundary, be like, you know what, that's just not possible. But for the longest time, like that's been a pattern. Sometimes I think I could do anything. But even though like in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's really not a good idea. I need to trust that like voice once in a while. Or the opposite, where I know I could do something, but I know I shouldn't. But I know I could. Like do you start out and run a business? Like everyone's gonna tell you no. Like your friends, your family, like your coworkers, everyone's gonna tell you why it's a bad idea. Or do you listen to that little voice in your head and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. So like listening to that voice. So that was the most frustrating project because it was totally my fault and I caused people a lot of heartache because I didn't say no. I did. I tried to push through anyways when I knew it almost wasn't possible, and it was a horrific experience all around for everybody.
But you came out of it okay.
No, it haunts me every night. Yeah.
How long past that experience are you?
Well, the trade show happened a couple weeks before COVID, so then like at least the world went on pause. So I think everybody forgot about it except for me.
I'm sorry that happened.
It happens, but that's part of it. Like, but that's when something works. Like that's why it feels so good when something works, because you know what it feels like to have failed that hard that you wish we were just a garbage man. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, or something, or any other job that didn't involve like what you're doing. Like I could have been a clerk at a convenience store. Like that would have been so much better than like you question your life. But now when something goes right and you know why it goes right and you know how like good it feels versus like how horrible something else could feel, like it feels good and you're excited by it. So that's why I was talking about the course. Like I'm excited about the course because I know it's going well. Like I know people are getting a lot of value out of it. I mean, people in my class, in my online class, I think in general are getting more out of it than people in my like in-person classes at college, because I think the people who are taking the online class are in a different phase of their life. Right. So they also appreciate it in a way that college students don't yet. They don't realize like having the opportunity to invest 4 years into your development is pretty awesome. You don't get that when you're like 40. Like, you just don't get that experience very often.
Yeah, your course is amazing, and you're helping people to take that step from thought to action, right? Because you're giving them the confidence to, okay, try this thing with a little bit of guidance, right? You have all those steps there for them to help them not be so scared.
I'm cringing as you're saying all this, because the thing with the course, I opened it up when it was like barely started, because one of my friends like, you should at least let people in early. You should like just charge a little bit. And I'm glad that I did, because it exposed like all the mistakes I was making and it helped me build relationships. And so it's going to be a better course. But while it's not quite finished yet, and I know it's not finished, which gives you motivation to do better. And that's like kind of how you learn. Like you have to feel comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes. And that's how I feel about the course. Like I know the course is doing well. I haven't gotten any complaints about anything, but I know all the things that still need to be done, the things that are wrong with it, the things that like I wish I hadn't done in the first place. But like it's going to shape the course to be the best possible course because it's been tested. So at the end of the summer, when I'm like, I finally raised the price, and it's like, I feel good about it, because at that point I'll work through a lot of the hard stuff and I know what had to be done. So like and that's the thing with going into business, like you're not going to figure it out until like you just make the plunge and make those mistakes. And you feel really uneasy while that process happens. But at the same time, that's the motivating thing that will make you make it better, instead of just like putting it off till it's like perfect or whatever, because that never happened. That's like the YouTube thing too. Like the videos were so bad in the beginning, and they still are, but like you want to bury those videos, so you got to make more videos, and the more videos you make, the better you get. So like, but those aren't good enough, so you're still like, oh, those are terrible, so you got to make more videos to bury those old videos so you can finally delete them. And
you're not a perfectionist, are you?
Not only with some things.
Yeah.
Only, you know what it is? I'm a perfectionist when I know like there's like when I know what could be, or like when I know what the potential is.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know what it looks like. I know what it tastes like. I know what it smells like, but I'm just not there. But I know what it looks like. And it's frustrating. So that's what I'm a perfectionist. I'm not perfection. Like I'm not a perfectionist on a lot of things. Yeah. And that's an understatement. Like my biggest flaw right now is I take on too much. Like I say, yeah, and I'm not very organized. Like I'm not as methodical as like some other people. Like I experiment and see, oh, that worked, and then like I'll do more of that, but then let something else go that like while it's on fire, and I don't even see it that it's on fire. And so like I need somebody around me that can be like, hey, like I miss paying bills sometimes, not because I don't have the money, because I'm just not thinking about it. Like it's not on I'm not interested in paying the bills. Like so I get a call from the creditors and be like, you haven't paid your car in 2 months. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, like stuff like that. But I'm gonna eventually figure this out. I'm gonna figure out that process. So like
Yeah.
so I'm not a perfectionist about everything, but some things, yes. Like I will get this process down perfect, and I will share it, and then somebody will use it for something that's maybe useful.
Yeah.
And that's where
Well,
I'm the perfectionist.
you and I have talked about that in your course. I mean, people are investing in getting to, they know what you're capable of. They've seen it, right? Because you were willing to put yourself out there on YouTube, they've seen how you teach, and they've seen what you give. So you are being critical of yourself in the course, but people are getting so much value that they wouldn't get otherwise, and they're getting it sooner than they would. So I think your course is a ridiculous good deal right now, and I've told you that before. So we have to make sure that everyone has the links for
Oh,
everything.
thank you.
Yeah.
The One of the things. So here's another happy accident. So I felt bad about the course. Like, you know what? More videos were supposed to be filmed. So I started doing live sessions, and like because they take less time than the videos, or at least they used to. Now they take just as long. And I started doing one-on-one sessions, and that was to make up for the fact that the videos weren't done or getting done quickly enough. So you just add more value in that way, which then of course slows the video production down tenfold. So now the videos are taking, instead of taking weeks, they're taking like a year to get done. But due to one-on-ones and the mentoring and the live sessions and the hangouts, and like you actually learn what people need. So like if you're a better listener, if you like, that's pretty well known. If you listen more than you talk, um, when you finally speak, there's probably a more eloquent way to say it. But what you have to say actually will have a bigger impact. So by listening to all these people in the course over the last couple months, I really have a really good handle like where most of them are and what are they looking for, and all that kind of stuff. So when I actually do make the videos, like especially the later ones, like they're really good. Like they're exactly what they need to be. Where I now have to go back and redo some of the earlier ones because I wasn't like calibrated.
Well, and you forget what it's like to be the beginner, right? So
Yeah.
you forget after you've done it, even 6 months, you're like, what did I care about then? So having the people there that can give you the feedback of like, but how do I do this little thing that you're like, oh, right, set focus. Always set focus, right?
Always
Those
set
little
focus. When
things.
I got my Glowforge, I think it sat in the box for a month. Like I
Whoa.
just didn't have the mental capacity to deal with it yet.
Yeah.
Because I was like, because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so like I just don't want to deal with it. Like that's another flaw. Yeah. It's like I don't check the mail ever because I don't want to know what's in the mailbox. I just don't want to know about it. So it's just like it just overflows. So the mailman gets upset. So when I got the Glowforge, I was like, yeah, it's cool. We waited 2.5 years for it. Right now I'm working on that thing. As soon as I unpack that, my mind's gonna be on the Glowforge. I think I waited a month before it. I even like peered in the box. And I was like, oh, there it is. I guess I gotta like, am I gonna have it like yeah, and the first time you turn it on, it's like you're like, oh my gosh, like everybody run! Like you have no idea, like is it right? Is it supposed to smoke like that? So like, part of me was like, that would be a great topic for a course because I had no idea like what it's
Mhm.
supposed to do. And at that time, there weren't a lot of videos on this stuff. I
No.
had no idea like what materials. Like you don't know, yeah. So I wanted to build a course that I wish I had had when I had gotten my Glowforge.
You've had the opportunity to work with Glowforge a little bit.
Yeah,
How did that come about, and what has that experience been like?
it's been really good. Where did it start? So I made the video that you talked about. I got the 90,000 views, but it was one of the first Glowforge videos that were bigger, right? So I started early, and so it got their attention. And so they started like just they called me up and they'd ask me some questions and like things like that, and ask my advice. And then when COVID came out, they had like this ear saver campaign, and like, can you help us with that? And I wasn't charging or anything like that. I was just happy to help, and like, yeah, we'll do that, we'll do this and do that. Um, And then I talked to their hardware team and their software team and their marketing team, and they'd always ask me all these questions, and it was really nice. And then finally, like they started asking me to help with a few of their projects. They just need more people who know the machine well, so I've done a couple of things for one of the videos that just came out on their channel a couple days ago. There's a dinosaur. It's like a
Oh, I
21-foot
haven't
long
seen that yet.
dinosaur. Yeah, that was all like design and burn on. So working with them on some of their content as well. Working on the IKEA hacks now, like all these crazy weird experiments, like using 3D engraves to make door handle knobs and making drawer fronts out of the spray painted MDF. A lot of the experiments that I would use, and making like living hinges that are. Do I have one over here? I have the one that's like not good around here. It was sitting right here. I don't know where it is, but making like huge living hinges. So a lot of the experiments can go into some of their projects. So and I am being paid for those. I don't know how much, because I don't do this for the money. I just need money to do it
Right.
because I have a full time job. Now if I transfer over, it's a different thing. Then it's like then it's I need them, like there's budgets and timelines and stuff. But yeah, they're always, like when I'm on Zoom calls. I was on Zoom calls with like Nick and Bailey and all those people. Their entire team is comprised of some of the most friendly, creative, smartest, driven. Like they work long hours. Like I was talking to somebody. They had 3 Glowforges going, and that guy planned on staying pretty much through the night. Like they work really hard. They are really to what they do. They have all these crazy weird backgrounds. Like they're all powerhouses, and they all really believe in the platform, like 150%. And so when you're in a Zoom call with these people, like you're like, wow, this is like a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like I'm just a guy in a garage, a 1-car garage, like in New Jersey. You know what I mean? So like, um, but they're really really fun to work with. They're good. Yeah, the meetings are very energetic, and they're fast. They move quick. I like that. Yeah. So
Well, you can see a lot of the stuff they've done in the last few months in the premium software. Like they have definitely heard some of the things that people have been frustrated about, because there's a lot of new features that have come out. Just even simple things that you're like, oh, I can align things now. That's good. Or
yeah,
some of those outline techniques and things that have gone in there. So I can tell they're listening, which I think is important.
I think they have a long way to go with some of the
Yes.
software stuff. Um, I think one of the things and I can only assume they struggle with, is their own popularity. Like their campaign, they were trying to get, if I remember the campaign correctly, they were aiming to get $100,000 to build the machine. After the 30 days or whatever, I don't remember how long the campaign ended, they got 28 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like, and I was one of those people. I was not in the market for a laser. I was like, $2,000? That's what it cost. I was like, I have a laser in my, because at the time, like the next best thing was like an Epilogue at like 20 or 30 grand. It's like 10% of the price. And then like it did the same thing. It outputs the same stuff. So it's a little slower. I can deal with that. It's just me in my garage. So like this seemed too good to be true. And I think they've had to spend the last couple. Now we have all these like Glowforge clones coming out, because they
Yeah.
they paid away for a lot of this research. And so I think it's taking them a lot of time to figure out. And then like COVID hit, so like supply chain issues, and all these people buying Glowforges, and then of course these people don't know how to use Glowforges, so there's all these support issues. And then like it's sent on a truck to UPS. Well, of course, like have like a lot of them like get damaged, because like because those people are overworked. And so it's like they had a lot of mounting challenges. And I think like they're finally starting to like get their stride, and move more efficiently, and get better products out there, and working on the software. And they have to, because now there's all this crazy competition.
Yeah.
Like if they don't, somebody else. And you got the music came out, like it's like pretty awesome. I got every laser company is always calling me like, hey, can we send you a laser? Hey, can we send you this laser? And I say no, because like I have the lasers. I don't need another laser. If they send me a UV printer, that would be great, but I don't need another laser.
Yeah.
But everyone's trying to like jump on that bandwagon, because like it's the most accessible maker tool, and
Mhm.
and they're fun to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's a very easy way to see a path to their own business.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I did the Glowforge live. Let me on their live channel. That was terrifying. That
You
was so
did
terrifying.
great.
Thank you. That was terrifying. But like even like making like we made all these animal shapes, like that was on the show. But these are just collages. Like people understand it. Like with a laser cutter, if you can make a collage, which you've done since you were like in third grade, you can use a laser cutter. You're just using
Yeah.
different materials. I don't think people understand. Like, and then that thing leads into another thing, which leads to another thing sometimes. But it's the most accessible tool to make like it's they're delivering on the promise that the 3D printing industry made years ago. Like you can make stuff in your home that actually is usable and looks good. Glowforgeforbeginners.com is the course. It's going well. I'd love to have you guys there. At the end of the summer, all the videos will be finished. I'll have a nice little welcome video and everything will be all packaged up real nice. Then I raise the price accordingly. So get in while its price is nice and low, too low probably.
Yes.
And then I'm gonna start doing a ton of YouTube content because I got so many ideas for. So here's what I want to do, and this changes every day. The YouTube stuff is my haven for like really weird experimental stuff that like people can take it or leave it. I don't care. Like I'm doing it for me. The course is probably more valuable. It's the stuff that people actually want to know about, and that's stuff for you. So if you only do stuff for other people, you get resentful. And if you only do stuff for yourself, eventually you're just going to get bored. So you need to find that balance. So I think the balance is the YouTube stuff is all the weird experimental stuff that you might love or hate. Don't really care because it's for me. It's not for you. And then the course, that's 100% for you. I'm 100% invested in what you're trying to do because I have this other outlet. So I need both. So I think that's how we're going to go. Yeah. And then doing a ton of freelance. And here's the thing too, like I need to do freelance and I need to teach in order to learn. And I think a lot of people, they don't grow if they're not doing work for service for other people. And I see a lot of other YouTubers guilty of that. Like they'll make projects for their home like every week, but you're not really like stretching a little bit beyond your limits. Not to the point where the clouds and everything's exploding and people are crying, but like you want to get to like you want to grasp at something that's just barely out of your reach and see if you can do it. Yeah. That's the most satisfying thing. But not so much you get burned out and you need to change careers like I did with coding. So it's all like it's all balance.
Yeah.
So
how do you find balance? Do you are your days just crazy because you're doing your full-time job, you have a kid, you have all of this?
It was all manageable until we had a baby, and all of a sudden, like, wow, now I have at least 8 hours less of my day and way less money. But it also like allows you to slow down and like, you know, we push on the swing or doing this and that. Like it allows you to like think about things more methodically and like, and it gives you like, it allows you to like figure out like why you're doing something in the first place. I think people sometimes forget to ask why they're actually doing it. They're just like, they're on a mission to get it done and they don't actually stop to think about why. So like in some ways having a kid has forced me to answer some of those questions. Like, what are you doing with your time? Because I don't have the time I used to have. I used to have unlimited time. I would just like, what did I do with all that time? Sometimes I ask myself that. What did I do with all that time? I know what I do with all that time, but like, what did I do with all that time? So like now everything is, what's the word? It's more intentional and more appreciated. So I appreciate the time I'm not working with lasers, but I also appreciate the time where I'm like dedicated to working with the laser. So I'm not going to be checking like Instagram very often and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's a whole other topic, like social media. Like, I don't know how to deal with that social media stuff. Like, it's fun, but it's a time suck. Like, it really is. And then once you do it, like, your mind is on, like, people commenting and stuff like that. You're not actually getting anything done. Yeah. So I need to figure that out. Yeah. So, yeah, I need to hire somebody, I think, for that part. It's fun, but I don't have time. There are certain things I don't have time for in my life. And social media is becoming one of those. I like to see how everybody's doing real quick. And then that's it. Yeah. But it's
Instagram has become like my friend. Like I just see my friends, my laser friends now, and that's about it.
Yeah. So I enjoy it, but it is a time suck. And then I see like awesome stuff everybody else is doing. I'm like, maybe I'm not good enough at this. So like that's not good either, because like you start to compare yourself, and that's not healthy. It's healthy to an extent, but not healthy for most people. Like I see, like, well, how come he gets to have a big, huge shop and all like everyone has a different life story. You know what I mean? Everybody's got like their strengths and weaknesses and situations and things like that. So social media is a weird beast. Yeah, I still don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. Even though for 12 years, my job was building social media apps. Like that was the beginning. Like, like that was my job, was to like get people to do that stuff. And now it's like, I don't understand it.
Addictive.
Yeah, it is. It's addictive. It's designed that way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like the Dorito effect. I don't know if you read that book, but and video games are the same way. Like they're designed to keep you in the platform.
Yeah.
This, like, I know we're running out of time, but like the analytics on some of the social media, like they know like for like how many microseconds, like, or if your thumb like scroll down for like a microsecond to like get a better look, like they know all that stuff. Like they know everything. I know because we all built the platforms that did all that.
This is a whole other episode, John.
Yeah, and then it's like, and so like, you think it's, oh, I'm just sharing woodworking, but you're not. There's like this
Right.
whole thing on behind, and we all know it. And it really taps into like the most primal instincts of human beings, and there's like even a whole documentary about it, but the hardware in our brains can't compete with that.
Yeah.
So I want to just make cool stuff made out of like natural materials. I'm not worried about social media anymore. I'm getting too old for this.
Yeah. If you are a beginner looking for a structured course to learn all about your Glowforge, don't forget to check out his Glowforge for Beginners at glowforgeforbeginners.com. Also, stick around for more conversations with amazing makers. I'm having so much fun talking to all these different makers to learn about their journeys, and I hope you are too.